Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party and my buddy Rhett, and we are chilling this Monday morning. The sun is coming into the window, kind of weird. But anyway, so here's the nut for Rhett, and we'll get rolling. Um, so yesterday I had to kind of abruptly stop. We do have a bunch of feral cats that live in our neighborhood, and yeah, I live in a sort of a suburb, but it's right next to like a public park. But the public park is a specialized park. It's only for sports and mostly soccer. There's a few other sports that'll go out there, but for the most part, it's for soccer. And so they have like these soccer events, and they have soccer practice, and then they have soccer events, and it gets all shut down. And with the soccer events, what happens is you end up with like a lot of people like bringing like food and stuff like that, and then um, they uh, and they come for like weeks and weeks and weeks on end, and then next thing you know, they quit coming. And then so what was happening when we first moved here would be like you would get like a lot of rodents and stuff that would sort of move in at the park, and then when everyone left, they would descend on the neighborhoods around the park, and so you always had like lots of issues with rats and mice and stuff like that. And so there were a few feral wildcats. Okay, so the difference between a feral cat and a wildcat is a wildcat never descended from a domesticated animal, whereas a feral cat, they were domesticated at some point and then reverted back into the wild again. And so we had a few feral cats that were running around. I don't know exactly how they got started, but I believe there's feral cats all over the country. Um, and and so we just made the conscious decision to start feeding the feral cats to encourage feral cat um, population in our area, which then massively reduces the rodent population, which is good, except for like we used to have a lot of rabbits around, and those rabbits aren't around. We did like the rabbits, but the squirrels, we have a lot of squirrels, but they are one of the toughest bunch of squirrels you'll ever meet. Um, so we have squirrels around. We do have a few chipmunks around, but we don't really have any rats or mice. And but the thing is then the ferals need to get fed when the rodent population drops, because they usually keep the fields shut for a grand total of about 6 different months over the year. So there won't be anything out there. So, but there was a feral cat that was stirring up trouble on one of our porches, and my wife was yelling at the cat, but I thought she was yelling at one of the dogs. So I thought maybe one of the dogs, um, maybe the dogs were fighting with each other or something like that. That I needed to go out, but it was nothing. But so it would have been nice to do a commit yesterday, but this is a good time to do a commit. So this says I did 21 changes. I think it looks like 8 of them are sort of just moving, where I just moved code. So because this is marking like 4 removes, and then I'm guessing there's 4 additions for wherever these things ended up again. Yeah, there they are. So really, there was only 13 changes, and then I don't know if you count the package as a change. I mean, it just is me adding these, so not a change that you would really consider like, oh man, this code is something we should sort of evaluate on whether, like, I've made the decision that I would like to kind of keep this as a sort of a history of everything, and there's that. And then it looks like we made one change for um, routing. I mean, not for routing, but for Cypress tests. So we added one new Cypress test. I thought we had modified an existing Cypress test, but maybe not. Um, but so we have one new Cypress test that checks for the routing. Basically, just make sure that this thing and this thing is in sync. That if you go to this thing, that this is correct. If you click on this, that it clicks that out. Takes care of that. So it's not something that I ever have to worry about again, because if I inadvertently break it, um, it will become like, let's say we change it and we just update the routing directive, the route handler of the main thing, and we never go back and fix these. It will instantly will know very quickly that we broke that. Um, so there's that. So then we added, we made some changes to the specification, and that was kind of a bummer that we had to do that. We deleted this. Um, Basically, I believe what happened was once we changed things to routing, we lost um, some coverage because of timing issues. Um, and I think that is very, very typical. Like, I think most places I've ever worked at, if we did add new routing to support something, typically you lose coding coverage because timing issues. Then this is our actual changes to the code. Um, and then, yeah, these changes were exclusively specific so that we can handle, so that we were able to run the unit tests against these things. So before, what was happening before the routing, something behind the scenes was running code long enough in which this request animation frame handler was getting called on its own inside of here. But then after the routing, we ended up having to pull this out so that we could call it directly so that we could get our code coverage back. I believe this is what we had to change. And it looks like all we really did was do a formatting change. I just put these on different lines for the routing. So here is our new routes. So we have basically 4 routes. One is custom, one is tabular, one is blank, and one is the wildcard. And the wildcard automatically pushes it back up to blank, which then that loads the app custom layout. And none of that's working yet because we haven't actually set up the router outlet directive. But hopefully that just works. Now, okay, so yeah. So let's move back through here. So these are just 4 things that are missing. This is our app layout menu. Now we could have used, I think, I'm not 100% sure of this, but we could have used a router outlet directive to handle this, but I didn't want to create a whole component just literally for these, for the icons. And then ChatGPT provided this code here. This router link is equal to layout if it's equal to custom. So if this is true, then it'll go to tabular. If it's not true, it'll go to custom. This is a ternary operator, and basically it just says do this if it's true, do this if this is true, do this if it's false. And that was pretty good. I thought it was a very, very clever way to do this. If we ever have to, let's say we had like 3 things or something like that, we might need to, this won't work. This works great for 2 things though. Who knows how we'll fix it if it's 3 things. Then this is the unit tests. It all looks good. We don't have any console logs. And then menu component. And I'm kind of going over this stuff because routing has been sort of it's like something I usually come up to speed on when I'm doing it. And then I sort of kind of let it go when I'm doing it. It's kind of like being in college where you're like, oh, okay, I've been studying this stuff. I know this stuff inside and out. And then literally an hour after the test, it's gone. That's kind of how routing has worked for me. The only thing is that routing seems to be something that is very often asked about in unit tests. I mean, in interviews. So it's a good thing to kind of get get good at talking about. But anyways, I don't typically go over all the code to understand everything, but um, you know, but see, so for this, basically, it's just looking for either tabular, the word custom, or tabular in the URL. And that is normally good enough. Not always. Once the routing gets a little bit complicated, you might end up with two different routes that just have the word custom in it, and that could cause problems. But even when that happens, normally you're like in some other context where the router outlet that you're looking at isn't even a thing anymore. We did break these down into these different functions for unit testing. So a lot of this um, was all about basically making it to where it'd be easy to get to the 100% unit tests. Um, yeah, this is our list of renderers for custom, and then this is our styles. I believe they just got copied over. Actually, I think this whole thing, yeah, this entire thing just sort of got moved, refactored. Um, App custom layout spec. We didn't. I think that literally we didn't have to make any changes. I think that one was just working. And then app custom layout. This is brand new code. I don't see any console logs or anything on that. And then this is not fully fledged, not even started. It's just, and we're not using it yet. I think it still makes sense to commit it, and only because there's something I really want to try. I want to see what happens when I move from custom to tabular layout, but I haven't deleted the reference inside of the objects that define these things. And when I don't delete that reference, I want to see what happens I want to see if they get destroyed or not, so that's the main reason that I'm just going to have it like this for a little bit. There's no code in there. This is our style sheet for tabular. Our unit tests doesn't really need to do much because it doesn't even get fired. Actually, I wonder why we got 100%. Well, I guess it ran this unit test, and all this thing does is come up, and yeah, so that's why we got 100%. And then app tabular layout component. So that's that. That looks good. I forgot to say what time it is. 8:25. It's 69 degrees, but it feels like 80, which is exactly what I thought when I walked around this morning. And we are at 97% full moon. And I believe it's the day after tomorrow that we will be at the full moon. So, I find that I do best. I'm like a werewolf. I do best when the moon is full. That's when I sort of am my happiest and most energetic. And then when the moon is like completely gone, when it's, I guess, rotating on the other side of the earth, I just don't understand exactly what's going on. And actually, that is one of the things I've always been fascinated about making animations of, is like, okay, what's going on with the moon? What's going on with the sun? How are all these things? And I'm actually looking forward to setting that up. But anyways, yeah, so this is ready to commit. I generally will do that from the command line. Let's see. I want everything, so I'm just going to say git add plus. So if you look up here right now, these are all under changes. This word, in effect, will just say staged. So like if I just click one of these, then I have one staged, and this changes. Now I will say that Git is not very hard, but Git is extremely okay. Git on its own as a technology should be really, really simple, but it's very, very difficult for us. I've always assumed it was some sort of cultural issue because it wasn't made in the United States. It wasn't made by Americans for Americans. But like these words like staged, but like I don't. To me, it seems like the way my brain functions, I wish it was like the command was git stage, and what you wanted to, because we're staging it, we're not adding it. But for some reason, adding becomes staged. And I actually put a lot of thought into like why Git is so challenging. Like that, to me, that is probably thing that most developers would, their lives would be a lot better if they spent a lot more time learning Git. But man, things get mucked up really quick because, like, I think everyone's pretty much sabotaged from the beginning when you're learning Git. Because first of all, like, they always use the real world comparison to a library. Okay, so it's like a library. Well, a library, if you're in computer programming, has a bunch of different meanings, and I don't think a single one of them has anything in common with Git. Okay, so I mean, just honestly, like, Git is a completely different thing. Git is more like an open ledger or a roster. Like if you were a coach, and like let's say the programmer is your coach, and you have a roster, and you need to find 20 players for your team, and like different positions, and you had like 5 recruiters, and you were like, okay, you guys all go out and get me players for my team, and then um, they're all just getting, they're all filling out their own little rosters, and then they're merging their roster in with yours. And if, by the way, both of you, two of you, don't know unknowingly recruit the same position, well, then you have a conflict, right? It's like, oh, you recruited someone in for position number one, and he recruited somebody from position number one, and we only have one position number one, so we need to figure out who did it. Like that's much closer than a library in whatever form, even if it's like a book, because like sort of a book indicates that you've gotten a book. There's one book that you are all sharing, and that is not what happens. It's like there's a bunch of lines, and I have my line 50, and you have your line 50, and if I check something in and I've changed line 31, and you check something in and you change line 70, then we don't have a conflict. But if we both change line 50, then we do have a conflict. Like that is more like what Git works like, not like, okay, I've gotten the book and you can't touch it while I have it. Okay, now I'm giving it to you. Now you got it and you can touch it. You know, like that all changes. Um, so, um, so that's sort of the reality of that. And and so, anyways, let me. So we've staged this, or we applied the add function. We've executed the add function on every file. And so now we have it in a position where it's we can do commit. So like if we said, oh well, I want to commit everything, but I don't want to commit I want to do this as a separate commit, we could remove it, right? And now and I don't even know I guess it's unstage, and I don't know it what the command is from the command line to unstage a file. Um, Git command to unstage a file, not a guile, a file. So restore with a staged flag and the name of the file. So we did a restore on routing here, and now we're going to do an add, and we did that restore to unstage it, and now we're going to do an add to stage it. See, it's just like the language is awkward. It's awkward, and like it kind of makes your brain just like sort of say, okay, I need to protect myself from some kind of weird mental sort of conundrum or something like that, you know. So, anyways, I think that Git. I've spent hours. I can't, I've spent so many hours learning Git. But say Git commit, and then this is going to be -m And this is video 156. And we are going to commits first half of routing. So basically this is the first half of the routing. Now, I don't know, by lines of code, it's probably not the first half of routing. By lines of code, it's the probably like 95% of routing. But by like functionality, basically, this kind of handles this piece. But now we are going to need to handle this piece where we have the actual content being dynamic based on the route. So that is that, and we're going to go ahead and push this. And that is that. And so now let's go to our package and just close everything else. Oh, this happens to me every single time. I made a change while I was going through there, and then I did not commit it. And all it does is remove, it's just like white space. And then I'm going to do the exact same commit, but slash tweaks white space. And git push. So that is that. Now we are at 8:35, so we still have a good chunk of time left. So let's go back into here, close others, and go into our file structure and just start closing directories. Try to lower our mental overhead. All right, so we are going to make changes in our app. So our app component. So right now what happens is we just put the custom layout out there, but we don't want to put the custom layout out there. We want to put we want it to change based on the local host. I believe, and I'm just trying to, I don't know that I've ever implemented this. Everywhere I go, it's either too far gone or it's already been implemented. Okay, so I'm assuming we have to bring in the router module. I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it right now. Router. It's like I find that if you wing it and you get it right, that your likelihood of remembering it goes way up. So there's our router module, and it looks like we have a lot of imports that we're not using. And then I guess now that it's, well, let's leave it like that. See what happens. Good morning. Okay, so it doesn't know what router outlet is. I believe it's called outlet. Oh, router dash outlet. And that makes sense because it's in here in the markup. I mean, everything else is like that. Okay, so now what I'm thinking is if I say, well, if I do an inspect, I'm thinking I'm going to have two app custom layout. Yeah, see, I have two app custom layout uh, things. So now I think if I go to, and we just use our thing here, now I have my app custom, oh, my app tabular layout and my app custom layout. Now if I click here, I have two app custom layouts. And I'm curious what happens if you have two app custom layouts. Oh, wrong. Yeah, you just get the one. App custom layout. And then down here, oh, we have at tabular layout. I wanted to go to custom. Let's reload. Okay, so now we're on custom, add a viz. Yeah, so it ended up doing one. It got very confused. I think it can only have one. I'm kind of surprised. Well, yeah, I'm kind of surprised that. Yeah, who the heck knows what's going on there? It would be fun to like just dig in and understand that, but I think what we want is this. And that is really weird when it reloaded it. That HAR thing is definitely not, wasn't really tested with ThreeJS and SVG or these sorts of things. Um, so we are in custom. Now, tabular. Now let's see what we get in our inspector. Yeah, tabular. So we don't have a custom anymore. I don't know what happens when we add a visualization. Okay, so our other layout doesn't exist yet. So now let's and it goes away, and it comes back, but it's over one because I'm thinking the other one still exists. I don't know. Just keeps moving. I think it keeps getting faster. So that is cool. So our tabular is, so our routing is working as hoped. Now, what it does, I don't know. It's weird. Doesn't really matter. I mean, it would be interesting, like to dig in and understand exactly, what's happening. It's like for some reason, like when I go here, let's just go back to the home page to the very beginning, and I add one of these guys, right? And then I go into tabular, it's gone, which makes sense because the whole component that renders these things is gone now. And now we put it back. Now it kind of seems like it added one. Like it went through the whole process of adding one. And what I'm curious about, and this is something I've been extremely curious about, is if I go into the component, and it's like one of these, there's some certain things that you want to try to understand, and then like when it comes time to understand it, like you can't convolute a scenario to test it, and this is sort of one of those examples where we can sort of see something. So right now we have after view and net, but I would like to add another um, life cycle hook. And I kind of like it when I have multiple of them to have it sort of on its own line, each life cycle hook. And again, this is more of a get thing than anything else, but it's on destroy. And then when you do this, it's going to ask you to create function. So it's going to implement our function for us, our onDestroy. Now we're just getting rid of this. I just want to see what happens. I don't know why, what it's complaining about. Oh, comma. Okay, so we don't actually have a way of deleting these things now. So I'm curious if we look at the console log and we add one of these. Okay, now will it get destroyed when I come over here? Oh, so it did get destroyed. And I really didn't think it would get destroyed because I'm pretty sure we have a reference to that component. And so our code, I guess at some point, I guess what happens is when this guy gets created, let's see. So we can tell when something gets created by when the constructor gets executed. But unfortunately, we do not have a constructor. So let's do that. So it looks like in Angular, when you destroy, when you do something that causes a component to not be visible anymore, like, and not visible isn't the right word, to not exist in its context anymore, that even if there are references to it, it still destroys it, which is really neat and very unusual. Creating viz component. I really genuinely thought that what we would see here is the viz component still existing, just because we had a reference, and it would only go away. Now this is nice, right? This is a nice behavior, and I don't know if it's a documented behavior and something that they plan to do, but there's no way this is an accident. So I'm assuming that they're going to keep this around. But I think it means that the viz component can be responsible for taking care of itself in our overall, like if we look at our interfaces, and I'm really more than anything thinking out loud right now. And then we go to our ST, and we go to our ST visualization, I think. See, it has a reference to a viz component here. So I thought for sure that since we have this reference here to this viz component would stay as is, but no, it is destroying itself. So I think what I need to do is in the destroy of the onDestroy event, go and find the visualization and remove the reference. And then I think that other second one, because I believe there's some code that says, hey, if the viz component is true, then use it. If not, then create a new one. I think that's how that works. But anyways, so let's go look at our here. And so console, and then we go like this, add. What? Oh, because we're on tabular. Let's go back to here, and then go back to tabular. See, we destroyed the two components. We created the two components. Now we're creating two new components. but our code needs to go back. We need to figure out why whatever is calculating these positions is, let's see, is it here? Is it here? Yeah. Whatever, for some reason it thinks that there's already two in there, and we do need to figure that out. Um, I think we need to figure that out, why it's thinking that there's already two registered. Um, I don't. Whatever is doing that, it's very unlikely that that was a bug at the time, but it is a bug now. When I go back from tabular to custom, it should be aware that, hey, the two that we have aren't, um, like the position. And yeah, I think I had some code that was like, what was the last, like a service. Yeah, I think I had a service, but it doesn't seem to realize that, oh, I'm coming back and I'm being created, and I already have a spot. Seems to be the issue. Is I think there's an assumption that if a viz component is being created, it's a new viz component. That probably is not appropriate. Um, and I don't know exactly how we're going to figure that out. But it is 8:50. It's probably a good time for me to log off, before we get, because this is going to be, this very well could be extremely confusing. Um, but I do think that the code will probably, the problem is that, like, we're building stuff before, like, and there's bridges. This was a bridge that we probably had to cross when we got there, and now we're there, and it's time to figure out this bridge of, okay, what happens when you leave and you come back? Like, that concept didn't exist in our reality before, and now the concept does exist. It's like, okay, we can be gone and then come back, and I could already have a spot. This visualization might already have a spot, and if I already have a spot, I need to go into my spot. But if I don't already have a spot, I need to create a new spot. So yeah, we need to add that intelligence, and it is technically feasible that we could have added that intelligence to it before, but then, we would really have likely been painting ourselves into a corner. It would have been difficult to, um, if we got it wrong, and it would be even harder to figure out. So, anyways, tomorrow we'll figure out what happened. So tomorrow the goal is to make it to where you add a viz, you go to tabular, you come back, and the viz goes back into its original place. And that is actually an extremely important part, because, like, one of the things I want is to be able to edit an individual one where basically I'm only looking at this one, and then, it's full size, and I'm kind of working on top and on the bottom, and then, I have like forms and stuff like that down here to work on this guy, and then when I go back, I want him to go back to his original spot. So that functionality is absolutely necessary. um, and it's going to be so much easier to fix in this point. um, but lost in the mix was just how easy it was to get that routing working. We did all the setup and all that, and now you just literally added one line of code. Well, I guess it wasn't one line, it was two lines of code to here. And yeah, I think we did an import, and it is crazy though. Oh, because we're no longer bringing that in here, so let's go ahead and get rid of that and just make sure everything still works. Yeah, so that still works. We just got to figure out why it's recalculating itself and why it's not figuring out where it belongs, and that I think that makes sense. I'm curious if we have a console error. I don't think we do. Yeah, we have these creating and destroying things. But adding the routing is kind of important. Just like literally that's all we did. Right? If we go to app component.html, like literally all we did was remove our old one now, and now it swaps very easily back and forth between the two different components. Over here, we just imported, we got rid of a bunch of imports that we're not using. We imported router module, and then we added this, and then in viz component, we added some handlers just so we could kind of understand what's happening behind the scenes. And then that was like a huge, for me, like a huge leveling up experience, because now I know that when you destroy a component, or when you, like, let's say you destroy an outer component, you get rid of it, the inner components get destroyed, regardless of whether you have a reference to them or not. And I guarantee that is going to make things a lot less confusing for me in my day-to-day work when I'm working with Angular, knowing that little piece of information. So that is that. I guess now that I know I'm going to be keeping the on destroy, I should clean this up a little bit, because I do have I only have 5 minutes, so I gotta go. But let's move that here, move this here, and basically it's going to need to do some cleanup. What did I do? Oh, I took way too much. We took too much. Let's move this down to here, and then move this on to here, and then yeah, so tomorrow it's all gonna, we know exactly what we're gonna be working on. We're gonna be trying to figure out how to get that to go back there, and that will be, it's gonna be probably, it might be challenging, but it'll never be easier than tomorrow. There's so few moving parts. We'll be able to easily, it'll be the easiest time to ever see what's going on. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Hang in there. It's Monday. Full moon the day after tomorrow. We're almost to a full moon, so some people get a little crazy during the full moon. Happy coding. Bye.